But after 6 o'clock, if the meeting continued, you had to continue in the language that was not your language. So from 9 in the morning to 6 p.m., the delegates from France and the delegates from the UK, because at that time the UK was in the European Union, appeared to be the most intelligent people of the group. You know, the French with very clear concepts, the English with very witty strategies. So they were by and large the leaders of the 27th Geneva. At 6:05, as the French had to speak English and the English had to speak French, they looked like the most stupid people in the meeting. So they were the same people, they were the same brain, but because of the difficulty of the language, they went from the top to the bottom. So this happens in this world. Maybe you're going to find someone who is Nigerian, and that in Nigerian, he is very clever, but when he has to go into English, French, etc., he looks much more limited. The new world is going to finish with that, because you will communicate with the other one in the language. In all the world, you will go to Iceland, you will go to Denmark, and you will be able to speak your language, and the other will understand perfectly the language. So this is a total change, and will be a total mobility in the world. So this you have to integrate in the future, I think. Then there is the way of mobility. I was talking yesterday, I think the future of mobility is aerial. In 7, 10 years, everybody will be moving through the space. And I think India has a great potential in that. I have not the time to explain that in detail, but I think that the same that in 1900, there were no cars in planet Earth. There were only prototypes. There was a Mercedes has created some models, for some models, but there was not mass production of cars, and there was not a single kilometer of asphalt in 1900. And today you have 3 billion cars moving at the same time in planet Earth. And we have done only 125, and we have created thousands of tunnels, thousands of bridges, millions of kilometers of roads. The future is totally different. You will take off in vertical, you will land in vertical, you will not need to take planet ground, and it will be a total change in urbanism. So I think this is very important to see how all this is going to change. Education that is going to be on trying to identify the qualities of each individual and going to a very personal education. Mobility will be aerial, communication, there will be no barriers. So all this is exposed there. But I was saying at the same time that we live in a world that you need the planet to be stable. Because obviously, if you are progressing very much as businessmen, if you are creating great things, but suddenly we go into big wars or there is big pandemics, everything is blocked. So the collective dimension is very important, the collective dimension. And I think that you have a very important role to play in this changing scheme of the planet. Why? Because 200 years ago, when there was a war, normally the one who declared the war went in the top of the armies. You know, when King Gustav in Sweden made the transformation of the armies, instead of going with heavy protections, they were with clothes, and the soldiers were much agile. And there was a great victory in the north of Germany because of the innovation in the way the war was organized. Well, he paid with his life because he was in the front of the armies. But nowadays it's totally different. All those who declare war are very much in the back seat. You know, Hitler, he caused 45 million people to die. 45 million. But he was absolutely sitting in the back. And when the moment arrived for him to say, you know, the game has over, and now you will be judged, not killed, judged. He said, oh, no, this is too heavy for me. I will commit suicide. I don't want to go to this difficult moment. So normally all the people who may encourage the people to go into wars, into confrontations, nowadays are people who are not taking part of that. So the victims are the young generation, the decider are the old generation. So you as a young generation, you have to see, no way, no way. You know, I'm going to be a great doctor, so I am going to be able to take someone with a very difficult accident, I'm going to save him. I'm going to be an architect, I'm going to build a great house. So you are going to be a politician. I don't want that you treat my ego of great nation, of power. No, no, I want you to deliver a horizon of good conditions for my prosperity. I want prosperity, I want richness, I want to develop my trip in this planet. I don't want to be part of a kind of imperial vision. So the only way is having the new generation saying, this is our vision. When the United States, they went into the war of Vietnam, you know, the end of finishing that war was when the people of the United States say, basta, we don't want to go more in this kind of direction. And then little by little, there were demonstrations and more demonstrations and more demonstrations. And at the end, although the Americans had lost only 100,000 people, not a great number, 100,000, it was impossible to continue that war. And then Kissinger, through the instructions of Nixon, went to Paris for 4 years to negotiate the end of that. It was a great defeat of the United States, great defeat. The conditions of the peace were totally out for the United States, but the fact that they did that was because the population of the United States didn't want to continue in that line. So I think that you have to think what is going to be your individual life, how to be in a profession that will be useful for the others, and this will give you some revenue, and with revenue you will have more freedom, and that you are part of a bigger project that is humanity, and that you have to contribute to have a united humanity. And to end, I say that my vision of the states and the humanity is similar to the water. You know, I am the ambassador of Spain, so I represent the state. So you can say, well, how an ambassador of a state is not saying that the state is the superior thing. Because I think that the states are just frames to organize the humanity to go much further. This is the same thing that the water. What is important in the water are the oceans. There we have the 98% of the water of planet Earth. But obviously the water is falling every day in a very inharmonic way. It's falling suddenly 25 liters here and only 2 liters 100 kilometers away, and then suddenly 100 liters in 1 hour in 200 kilometers away. So it's raining in very, let's say, disorganized way. But once it has fallen, it becomes organized to the rivers. And then you have very big rivers, like the Ganges, and then you have very small rivers. And all is connected with the rivers, that all of them end in the ocean. So the humanity is similarly. We have started in very disorganized way. People have appeared in some places of Africa. From Africa, they have come to Asia, to Europe, to America. And little by little, in the development of humanity, we have organized collectively. First in tribes, then in villages, then in cities, then in nations, then in federal states, then in global organizations. So at the end, we have to end in a global humanity that is safe and that can provide a great horizon to each individual. And I think that India is a fantastic example for that, because at the end, you have managed to organize a space of 1.5 billion people in a global space. You can say, well, there are some weaknesses, there are things that have to be improved, but the global space is organized. You have not internal armies. A man from Calcutta can open a business in Kerala. He has to, or she can pay with the same currency. So you have created it for 1.5 billion people. So to think of creating that for the 8 billion people is not a dream. It's a possibility of the future, and it depends on the new generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your inspiring words and sharing such valuable perspectives with the young delegates. It's been an honor to have your presence at YI Confluencia 2025.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and all our distinguished speakers for sharing your inspiring thoughts and messages with us this morning. Your words have truly set the tone for a day filled with learning, collaboration, and youthful energy. To express our heartfelt gratitude, we will now proceed with the felicitation of our esteemed dignitaries who have graced the occasion with their presence and support. We request Professor P.C. Biswal and Pradipta sir to kindly present the memento to His Excellency as a token of appreciation.
Thank you to all of you.
Requesting Mr. Aayush to present the memento to Professor Biswal. I would like to request Ms. Priya to facilitate Pradipta sir. A big round of applause for our dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. Your guidance and encouragement mean a great deal to every young mind here today.
As we come closing to this inspiring inaugural session, it's time to express our heartfelt gratitude to all those who made this morning meaningful and memorable. I would like to request Ms. Priya Jain to deliver the vote of thanks and bring this session to a graceful close.
It has been a privilege being amongst such a wonderful crowd today. His Excellency, thank you very much for your inspiring words. A line that really resonates with all of us today, I think, could be that we live on this planet, but there's so much little that we know about it. Professor P.C. Biswal, I am Director, IMI Bhubaneswar, so thank you so much for giving youth the perspective of what they are now and what the potential holds in the future. And Pradipta sir, thank you so much for being a part of this gathering. Your journey, the way you've moved ahead in life, I'm sure these young, inspiring entrepreneurs and change makers are going to take back valuable lessons from you. Thank you to our strength, the heart and soul of Confluencia 2025, you, YUVA. Thank you very much for being a part of this. Heartfelt gratitude from YI Bhubaneswar. Thank you.
Requesting all dignitaries and special guests to gather at the center of the stage for a group photograph for this special moment to capture. Students, please maintain the discipline.
And before I go ahead with the standard conversation, His Excellency has proposed that if you guys read the book, find it interesting, have inputs and insights to suggest, he may reconsider coming back to your institute once again in the upcoming year. So this is the book authored by His Excellency, The Great Reset, Control Alt Human. If you Google this, you'll get a lot of conspiracy theories. There is another title called The Great Reset, but what His Excellency has authored is completely different. So we get to know more about this from the man himself. So please.
Thank you very much. Well, as I mentioned to you, I wrote this book when the pandemic started because it was lockdown and most of the people. And then my daughter, that is your age, came to see me and say, well, you know, Daddy, it's terrible this because the previous generation, let's say, those who had to be, let's say, empowered in 2010, 11, 10 in Europe, because of the crisis of Lehman Brothers in the United States, has been hit by a very big crisis, and they have lost all this decade. The salaries were low, possibilities were closed, so previous generation, due to the Lehman Brothers crisis, has suffered a lot. And now the things are taking off. Then there is this pandemic arriving, and they will ruin our possibilities. So I said, I think I have to write something that gives a vision to the new generation of the great possibilities they have, and at the same time, what are the challenges, the risks, and how to orientate that. So this is a book about. It's a book that is one book, let's say, in chapter 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, the odd chapters. That is this trip of a great scientist, that by the way is a woman. We are in the century of women, you know. And this woman that is an expert on artificial intelligence goes to different places in the world where he deals with a project on artificial intelligence. So the questions are different as the mobility, as the new urban development in the world, on communication, on financings, on health, all these different areas. But then in the chapters that are there, the 2, 4, 6, 8, she falls asleep and she goes into this great debate on the future of humanity. And that is essential because it's not a theoretical thing, but it's the possibility of the individual life to flourish. And then at the end, there is a kind of philosophical question. And the philosophical question is, the great scientist Stephen Hawking was asked, what is the future of humanity? And he said, this universe is so immense. You have, only in our galaxy, you have like 400 billion stars in our galaxy, and there are billions of galaxies, that we are just an element of this grandiose project. And I think that the element is that we are going to be one of the factors of the bees he was talking, the bees of polarization of intelligence in the universe. So our role is to be intelligent elements, to be spreading intelligence in the universe. Okay? So the end of the book says, well, then we have a very huge responsibility, because when we go to the outer space, how are we going to go on this trip? As a human species that has been able to create an order in the original planet, that has been successful enough to organize the collective life, and goes outside to bring this kind of model of harmony, or we would have been unable to create this harmonic model in planet Earth, and we're going to say we are going to try elsewhere. And that is a very important question for ourselves. In this planet at this moment, we have to be very conscious that we have no other obstacle than ourselves. We are able to go to the oceans. We could have, for example, this territory forbidden, because you could put your hand into the water and you would have such an allergy that you could die. Maybe you would not use the air because it would be another species that block you to use the air. Because there could be some kind of let's say, animals that we can control that you could not go. No, in this moment, everything is for humanity. You can use the water, the air, the planet, everything. We have only one difficulty, is we are not able to organize ourselves. We have not found the algorithm that reinvents governability at global scale and sets the challenges at some points. But I think that as the book is written for you, for the new generation, I think that it will be very interesting that they have dozens of people next time saying, you forgot A, you forgot B, I don't believe this, I don't believe that, because I think that maybe I can proceed one day to a second edition with the input of the people. Thank you very much.
I have another question, Your Excellency.
I'm sure the current generation would agree with me that we are so used to consuming content, information, and data over the internet. I'm not sure how many of us over here are really used to the habit of holding a book physically, reading it, soaking in the feel of the pages. So, I don't know, I wouldn't be wrong if I say that picking up a book and reading is difficult. But what I would like you to say is, how difficult was it for you to write this book? How long did it take you to pen down your thoughts and compile this masterpiece that we have here right now?
Well, this time I was very fortunate because I was blocked. I was locked down in the house in Mallorca for 6 months. So I had all the time for me. I was traveling around the world constantly. And at that moment, it was decided that was not the country locked down, it was even the village locked down. So I could not go out of my house in Mallorca. At the very beginning, my daughters said to me, this thing is going to be terrible for the new generation. So I said, well, I think I have to write that. And I will tell you anecdotes on that. One is, a long time ago, many years ago, I read an interview to an Argentinian writer that was asked, why do you write books? And he said, oh, I write books because the book, once you have started, gets the whole life. And I say, well, this is what we call in French boutade, a sentence that is very nicely found, but it's not reality. Well, when you write books, you understand that that is real. When you have to write an article, what you have to do is to compress many ideas you have in very short space. So you are not very creative. You are creative since the point of view of synthesis, but not in many new ideas. In ordering the ideas, yes. But when you write a book, you have some key ideas. You have immediately when you start something, a new character, a new situation, so you have to invent a new thing, a new thing, a new thing. And that is a very interesting thing of writing, the creative process. So that was one thing. The second was that I was locked down, and I said to my son, well, I'm going to be fit. So I'm going to run and make a little bit of jogging and all that. And he said to me, no, Daddy, this is not like that. It does not work like that. You have first to control your diet. You have to eliminate the potatoes, the pasta, the bread, the rice, wine, and then you will lose kilos. And once you lose kilos and you begin to be fit, then you start making the jogging and whatever you like. And I say, oh my God, this new generation has a lot to show to me. So I'm going to write something that I will try to give to the new generation what I think I can give, but creating a debate that I will get from the new generation the many new visions they have. And that is why I took 8 months to write this book, but it was nearly 8 hours per day. I was waking up, I was writing the ideas I had at the very beginning of the day, then I had a breakfast, I went to make a little bit of jogging, then I had always good ideas after making exercises. I wrote again, then I had lunch, I wrote again in the evening, and then at the very late time, as I was doing that in the computer, I was polishing it. It's very important, this double movement. When you are volcanic, and then you try to put the minimum limits of how it is emerging, and then when you are calm, you have to polish it, because things, how they are finished, are very important.
So my next question would be, I think for us, our children are very critical of what we do as adults. So how do your children respond to your book?
Well, my children at the beginning, as I said to you, at the beginning of the process, they said, Daddy, all this is useless because we, the new generation, we don't read. We don't have time. We're going immediately to the point and we want to go very fast. And I said, well, I think it's important to read. It's true that it's painful, it is lonely, but it's such a nice, magical experience. So when I finished the book, they didn't change of opinion. They said to me, what you have written is very interesting and it was very inspiring and we like it very much, but I tell you that either you transform that into a kind of series, of a kind of visual thing, or it will not impact the new generation. Because the new generation is just visual, it's just instant, and they don't take the time to read. Well, I think that maybe here we see it differently.
So one last question. For the Gen Z, if you had to use just 3 words on why they should pick up this book and read it right away, what would those 3 words be?
I would say that is, I need to make an adjective with the word. I say this is open imagination, uh, discover new horizons, and will motivate.
I don't know about others, but my kids are voracious readers, and I think I'm going to present my daughter with one of the books. and it's going to make an amazing read. Really looking forward to this experience. And now I would like to invite our volunteers who would like to receive a signed copy of The Great Reset, signed by His Excellency. Hi,
I would be very happy to receive the feedback of your daughter.
Really looking forward to that.
I would like to request 5 students for the volunteers on stage.
Well, a last thing to say to you is, they said to me, share something that has been key in your life, or the advice. I would say 2 things, maybe. One is that normally the great failures has been transformed in the positive sides of my life. So, they said to me, how did you become diplomat? They asked me yesterday. And I said, well, when I was 11 years old, I had the highest qualifications in all the subjects except English. My English was absolutely horrible. And the headmaster called my parents and he said, your son has no capacity for languages. So it's better you send him to England 2 months and then he will learn a little bit of English and he will suffer less. And at that time, Spain was a dictatorship and England was a nice democracy. And one of the advantages of democracy is that things are more colorful, and dictatorship are always very elemental and basic. So at that age, I was 11 years old, and I went to Shrewsbury near Wales, to one of these big colleges that are empty in July and August with foreigners. And then I discovered a great country, and I said I have to find a solution to work in these kind of countries and not to stay in Spain. But the second moment was I was reading a book called I Confess I Have Lived, from the great poet Neruda, and he describes how his aunt sent him to Malaysia, to Indonesia, and then he discovered the beauty of all these places with this profession of being a consul there. And I say, oh, I have to be in these countries, maybe this is the kind of profession I could have. So the combination of a setback with a book orientated my career. That is one thing. The second is that obviously in life, luck is essential. Luck is essential. But the second thing is that sometimes luck is approaching you and you don't manage to be intelligent enough to get this momentum. And I remember that many times I have been able to be successful with luck, but I failed once, and has been very important this failure. When I was in Russia in 2009, my son was in the school of all the rich Americans and the rich Russians, and one night in February, he says to me, Daddy, why don't you give me 1,000 euros? Because that is $1,200. Because in the school, everybody is talking on Bitcoin. And then you see the difference of the new generation and the old generation. I said to him, Alejandro, why are we going to waste 1,000 euros? This currency is not in any bank, and we cannot change it easily, so we are not going to invest 1,000 euros in this very speculative thing. Okay, 1,000 euros in 2009 is $105 billion, $105 billion today. So the luck came to see me, and I was not open-minded to take it. So my advice is, before saying no to something, think it not twice, but 3 times. Thank you.
So before we move ahead with the book signing ceremony, I would request His Excellency to sign the book assign the first copy for today for our Director Sir, PC Biswal.
Thank you, His Excellency. So, the next is Jain.
Requesting team from Aerovia to be ready. Team from Aerovia can have you here. After the signing of the book, we will proceed with an experience for His Excellency. ARVR is for His Excellency. ARVR for the delegates will be at CR1.
बंद कर देंगे ये साइन हो जाए बंद कर देंगे।
मेरी आवाज नहीं आ रही माइक नहीं है
ये आता है मैं तो वाला कुछ और
ये बता कल
कल 11 से 12 এটা পরে বিকেল বেলা এসে স্ন্যাক্স আবার নর্মাল মেসেজ इधर नहीं हो सीआर वन में थ्री डी मूवी दिखाएगा क्या मूवी दिखाएगा वो उड़ के जाने से ऊपर में
10 मिनट
तो खत्म करते हैं लाइफ
Requesting all delegates to kindly assemble after the book signing ceremony. We'll do a very Gen Z thing. We have His Excellency over here. We're going to shoot a reel.
चलो रास्ते चल रहे हैं
If you want to be in the So on cue, 1, 2, 3, you have to say YI Confluencia 2025.
So, one thing, such a pleasure to sign books here in India because the names are just like poems, you know. It is much superior, you know. It's Jasoria is like beauty and wise. Priyanka is the seven goals that is generosity for everybody. It's so beautiful to start in life with a kind of blessing of your parents saying, this will be the definition in life.
Thank you so much. I would like to request thank you so much for signing the books with so much love, affection, and patience for our our students over here. One last Gen Z request that we have, if we can have you here, we want to have you for a very short video reel. Everybody ready?
Yes, ma'am.
So, on the cue, 1, 2, 3, what are you going to say?
YI Confluencia 2025.
Okay, 2025. All right.
So guys, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I'll go 3, 2, 1, and when